Welcome to the Private School Leader Podcast, where private school leaders learn how to thrive and not just survive as they serve and lead their schools. I strongly believe that it is possible to have a long and happy and fulfilling career as a private school leader. And my passion is to help you figure out exactly how to do just that, right here on the Private School Leader Podcast. And I'm your host, Mark Minkus. So when I was a kid, I grew up in a small town with a population of just under 3,000 people. But when I was a teenager, and I'm trying to have some fun, I could never get away with anything in my small town. And that's because my dad literally knew everyone in town. And not just that, he talked to almost everyone in town about once a week. And the reason is because he was the desk clerk at the post office. And back then, we're talking 70s, early 80s, everybody went to the post office. And so if I'm out, driving a little too fast or out doing something with friends, my dad would know about it because literally everyone in the town knew who I was, and they all talked to my dad about once a week at the post office. And my dad loved working there. He worked at the post office for about 35 years. And I rarely ever got to visit at work, government building, and it was busy and it was whatever. But I remember one time I was there a little bit before he was done for the day, and he's sorting mail and he's doing all these different things. And I noticed that he had this little rubber tip thing on his thumb and then a little rubber tip thing on his index finger. And I was like, well, what's that? And he said, well, it keeps me from getting paper cuts. And he said, I handle thousands of pieces of mail every day. Can you imagine how many paper cuts I would have if I didn't wear these two little things? And so I'm sure that you've heard the phrase death by 1,000 paper cuts or death by 10,000 paper cuts. And I actually think that's a pretty accurate description of our lives as private school leaders, because we have thousands of little frustrations and interruptions and annoyances. And, individually, none of those things are a big deal just on their own. But collectively, they become a really big problem and they become really overwhelming really quickly. So on today's episode of the Private School Leader Podcast, I'm going to teach you 9 strategies to overcome death by 10,000 paper cuts as a private school leader. And I know what death by 10,000 paper cuts feels like, and I know where it can lead. And you've heard my story. I was in the hospital with ulcers. I've been diagnosed with severe burnout. I had stress-induced vertigo that was so bad that I couldn't stand up without falling over. I couldn't walk. But I figured out how to make it better, and I can teach you how to make it better. And that's why I created Thrive Academy. And Thrive Academy will help you get out of survival mode or wherever you are and get you back to feeling energized and fulfilled and happy at school. You'll be thriving. And how long has it been since you felt that way? And here's the thing. Thrive Academy can get you the transformation that you need. And it is not about information. You can get information for free. You're listening to this podcast for free. There are blog posts. There are YouTube videos. There are books you can check out of the library on leadership. You can try to get a transformation for free. And you can get a lot of information. But if you could get the transformation that you need through information, you would have already gotten it. And so what Thrive Academy does is it takes everything that I learned about how to go from where I was, which was miserable and burnout and not wanting to do this anymore, wanting to quit my job, going from that to thriving and feeling happy and fulfilled and excited to go to work every day. And I want that same thing for you because I really believe that Thrive Academy can change your life. You don't have to make all the same mistakes that I made. I want to teach you how to go from surviving to thriving. And so you just have to go to theprivateschoolleader.com/thrive, theprivateschoolleader.com/thrive, and just check it out. I have dozens and dozens and dozens of Thrive Academy students that have reported that this changed their life, and I want that same thing for you. So privateschoolleader.com/thrive. And I know that if you're listening to this in real time, it's, mid-September, it's still kind of early in the school year, but I have a question for you. Do you already have teacher drama unfolding at your school? Do you already have teacher drama unfolding at your school? A teacher with a bad attitude or terrible body language, or maybe two teachers not getting along, or maybe a veteran teacher that's keeping a little black book on when a younger teacher arrives or what they're wearing, and it's just causing drama on the staff. Well, I am excited to share with you a free resource. I want to give you I want to equip you and give you a resource that can help you with teacher drama. So this is called 5 Strategies to Reduce Teacher Drama at Your School. And it's a 9-page PDF that will give you the strategies that you need to actually reduce the teacher drama at school. And so I know we talk about it a lot, but there aren't a lot of practical resources out there to actually do something about it. So if you go to theprivateschoolleader.com/drama, you can grab your free guide, a 9-page PDF called 5 Strategies to Reduce Teacher Drama at Your School. And that's at theprivateschoolleader.com/drama. That's free for you, just to say thanks for listening to the podcast. So on today's episode, we're talking about death by 10,000 paper cuts. And I want to start with the phrase itself. And I want to give you a heads up that it's actually kind of gross as far as its origin. That phrase, death by 1,000 cuts, actually comes from an ancient Chinese form of torture that would lead to execution, and it was called Lingchi. And Lingchi literally translates to slow slicing. So I told you it was going to be gross. So it was brutal. It was a symbolic form of torture in ancient Chinese times. And the purpose was to inflict maximum suffering slowly over time before the person died. But we know that this has become a phrase in modern language, and it's become a powerful metaphor in modern language because it means that, it's these things that are not a big deal on their own. Thousands of tiny little stressors or disruptions or interruptions or annoyances or pet peeves or aggravations, just all these tiny little things. But it's not about each of them individually. It's about all of them together. Death by 10,000 paper cuts. And so for me, in everyday life, it's someone driving really, really slow in front of me, or someone that's blocking the aisle at the grocery store, or, I'm hurrying to make dinner or something, and then I drop a couple of eggs on the floor or spill something all over the table, or I'm on a Zoom call with a client and the Wi-Fi gets super funky, and it's just things that it's honestly, if we just take the thing one at a time and isolate it, it's not that big of a deal. But these minor inconveniences, these minor frustrations, when we put them all together, I really believe, at least in my experience, that they feel exhausting, they feel frustrating, they feel discouraging, they feel defeating. And I'll give you a few examples of death by 10,000 paper cuts at your private school. Example number 1 is inbox overload. When you have a bunch of unread emails and they all feel urgent, but only a couple of them or none of them are important, but you feel like you need to respond ASAP, then your inbox there's a paper cut, okay? And then how about when someone appears in your doorway when you're working on something important? They appear in your doorway and they say, "Hey, do you have a minute?" And everything inside of you wants to say, "No, can't you see that I'm busy working?" But they just appear in your doorway. Just a quick question. Each one is harmless, but when it happens 12 times a day, not only does it kill your productivity and your flow, and with task switching, it gets frustrating to re-engage with whatever you're working on. Those interruptions can be another paper cut. And I want to say too that not all paper cuts are created equal. You know, I don't know about you, but I've had a manila folder paper cut once. And one time I had one of those manila big envelopes and was licking the thing to close it, and I got a paper cut on my tongue. And so not all sizes of paper cuts are the same. Not all paper cuts are created equal, because I might be talking about some of these things and it's like, well, that doesn't seem like a big deal to you. None of them are a big deal. It's just the cumulative effect of all of them. So another example of death by 10,000 paper cuts at school is repetitive questions. So I know that most school leaders were once in the classroom. And when I was in the classroom, one of the things that frustrated me the most was when the students would ask questions about something that I had already explained. So just think about that and how frustrating that is for you as a leader when it's like, did you read the handbook? Did you read the email that I sent that has the map in it for the, that has the diagram in it for the event? Did you read the email about carpool dismissal policy? And you've explained the thing 5 different ways, but parents and sometimes staff ask the same questions. And so repetitive questions, there's another paper cut or 5 paper cuts. How about staff drama? I mentioned a few minutes ago a resource for reducing drama at your school, but it's like you've got all these people, and some of them have strong personalities. Some of them are passive aggressive, and some of them just have a bad vibe or a bad attitude or bad body language, or they want to pretend that they're like the sheriff of the, whatever hallway, and it creates drama. And it's like, seriously. It's like, I think that paper cuts sometimes just cause that deep sigh and then just like, seriously, again? That's kind of what I'm talking about. And I think that we don't realize, because we just think, well, that's just the job. Okay. Some of these things are just the job, but I'm going to teach you strategies so that this just doesn't become something that you accept and something you just have to live with, because our jobs are hard enough without being aggravated by all of these paper cuts. A couple more that are examples. I just want to, again, have you laser focused before we get into the strategies of what, in fact, it is that we're talking about. Is another big paper cut is when you're getting micromanaged from your board, or if you're a division head, you're getting micromanaged from your head of school. And maybe they mean well, but it's like when you get second guessed on a small decision, yikes. Okay, when you have a board, this is a true story. When you have a board chair that hasn't responded to certain emails that are super important, and then you find out about it after several emails have not been responded to, and then the next day that person wants to get a focus group together to see if we should change our mascot at our school that we've had for over 40 years. Yeah, exactly. That the emotion that you just had in that moment, exactly. Paper cut, big one, right? So being micromanaged from the person above you on the org chart. Another big paper cut could be no boundaries around your time. And when your evenings and your weekends and even your vacations, you're just getting texts, you're getting phone calls, and it's like, can't they just handle that? Can't they just follow the procedure? Can't they just read the email and do the thing? Why do they have to bother me with that all the time? That's what I'm talking about, is paper cuts. A lot of these are unnecessary. You have so many things in your job that are necessary. I'm trying on today's episode to get you to clearly see that a lot of these things are preventable, and then I'll give you some strategies for how to actually make them preventable. And then I'll give you just 2 or 3 more. Here's a big one for me. I actually have it highlighted on my script here. Unexpected staff absence this is when I earned my Academy Award. Okay, so it's a Wednesday morning, and when you went to bed on Tuesday night, you're praying that nobody calls off because you know you're already out of subs. And then on Wednesday morning, you get a call from, let's say, the kindergarten teacher, and she says, I'm really sorry. I know there's people out, but I'm sick, and so on and so forth. And so what I say is, oh, I'm so sorry to hear that you're sick. We'll take care of it. Don't you worry. You just focus on getting better. And then I hang up, and it's like I just earned Academy Award for Best Actor because it's so frustrating. It's not her fault. She's sick, okay? But it's like you had your day planned, and okay, that moment when you are ready to have a really productive day, and then you realize, oh, my day is going to be covering a class. That's what I'm talking about. Okay, just a couple more. Facilities failure. So the copier breaks, the heat isn't working in the science lab, it's raining and the roof in room 301 is leaking, and then somehow it's always your problem to solve. Another paper cut is parent complaints. And honestly, it's like that feeling. We know it's the small group of parents that take up most of our time, but it's like when you just feel like I'm working so hard, we already communicated that. Why do they have this question? Or if it's just a chronic complaint, it's like, if they're this happy, why don't they just leave? Those are paper cuts. And then finally, when you just feel like you're the only adult in the room, you've been at a meeting where you're leading a division, a staff meeting, and a couple of teachers are acting like children, or you're at a board meeting and a couple of board members are acting like children, and you're like, well, how come them avoiding responsibility is suddenly now my problem? And so, like I said, that each one of them on its own, no problem, but taken together, it literally can bleed you dry. That's what we're talking about. And so I feel frustrated and annoyed and discouraged and exhausted with all these little paper cuts. But here's the thing. We have to avoid just running it back again and again and again and again, and then doing it all over again, year after year, month after month. And so what we're going to do is we're going to make it better. And so I'm going to give you 8 strategies to overcome death by 10,000 paper cuts. And then I'm going to give you a quick disclaimer. Some of these strategies are going to take some time, but you're going to spend time to save time. Okay, that's my disclaimer. And you don't have to do all of these. Even 1 or 2 of them could make a big difference. And I know that 8 strategies is a lot, and I encourage you to multitask when you're listening to the podcast. And so, as usual, I'll take good care of you in the show notes at theprivateschoolleader.com/episode 152. And I also will mention some podcast episodes, and I'll link those in the show notes as well as we go through these 8 strategies. Okay, so strategy number 1 is to stand up. Stand up. So remember when I said that teacher appears in your door and they say, do you have a minute? And you have to bite your tongue because the answer is no, but they're like, sure, come on in. Something that will save you, in my experience and the experience of my coaching clients, around 2 hours a week is when someone appears in your doorway and says, hey, do you have a minute? Is immediately stand up. If you're standing up, they're very, very, very likely to stay standing up as well. But if you stay seated, they're very likely to come in and to sit down. And so I believe that about 80 to 90% of the, hey, do you have a minute, are just an exchange of information that could probably take 2 to 3 minutes. But they end up taking 15 to 20 minutes because of the small talk about the weather and the game last night and just social niceties, okay? If you stand up immediately and then you do that exchange of information, you're going to know really quickly if this is something that's more important, this person's struggling with this or that, or hey, I need to give you a heads up about like so-and-so is really upset. Like even at that, it might not be a, hey, come in and sit down, but you're going to know. You have good intuition. You're going to know if you need to say, hey, come in and sit down, and maybe you close the door. And so I did a whole episode on this, and so I'll link it in the show notes. This one, I think it's called This One Productivity Hack Will Save You 2 hours a week or something like that. I'll link it in the show notes. But when someone appears in your door and says, do you have a minute? Just stand up. Try it for 2 weeks and then shoot me an email. I'm telling you, it is going to save you time. It is going to shorten up all of those interruptions so that the exchange of information can be just that, and it can take a couple minutes and not 20 minutes. Okay. Strategy number 2 for overcoming death by 10,000 paper cuts. Improve your staff memo. Improve your staff memo. Now, maybe I'm talking to you and you already have a really, really good staff memo. But I want to tell you, I'm just going to tell you what it looks like to have a really, really good staff memo that is built in such a way that it's going to reduce your paper cuts. All right? You need your staff memo. Let's say it's weekly. Okay, some of you might do it daily, but let's just say it's weekly, and let's just call it the Friday update. I believe that it should be once a week. It should be at a predictable time. It can be scheduled as far as when it's shared. I like the idea of a Google Doc because there's probably more than just you that's contributing to it, but not everybody has access to be an editor on that Google Doc. But you can work out the details as far as the how. I'm talking about the what and the why. So let's just say it's your weekly memo, a teacher memo, or a Friday update, whatever. Okay. So you're going to have a predictable time. You're going to make sure that this is their one-stop shop for reliable information. Everyone on staff, this is their one-stop shop for reliable information. And then you're going to be super, super OCD or super, super particular, super, super detail-oriented about making sure that the information in there is accurate. Because if the information in there is sometimes accurate, they're not going to read it and they're not going to rely on it. And so you need to be a little bit crazy when it comes to making sure that this one-stop shop weekly memo, everything in there is accurate. And I think that it should contain your schedule for the week coming up. This assembly is on this day, and here's a link to, the diagram for where people will sit during that assembly. Here's a reminder, there's a deadline coming up for whatever. There could be an FAQ section. What are the questions that people ask all the time? You could literally have in your weekly memo a Google Doc where they click on it and it is the answers to those frequently asked questions. I'm trying to get you to think about all of those frustrating things. It's like, did you read? Okay, I want to acknowledge something. Just because you create this thing doesn't mean they're going to read it, but they're definitely not going to read it if it's not worthwhile, if all the stuff isn't there. But if it is worthwhile and everything's accurate and it's a one-stop shop, you then, as the leader, need to just keep pointing people to the handbook to the teacher memo or the Friday update. Don't give them the answer. Say, hey, that's in the memo. You got to don't validate their curriculum by having them come to you and you have all the answers. Put as many answers as possible in the memo and then direct them to the memo. And you will see a difference in the number of questions that you have, and your frustration will go down because you're answering these questions that they would know the answer to if they just read the memo. And I'm talking links to everything. Link to the employee handbook, a link to the student handbook, the sports schedule, the lunch menu, the procedure for calling off, and maybe it's click here for the ADP portal or click here for the Google form. I'm a big believer in Google Forms. So click here, a Google form for maintenance request, and then that goes to whoever's in charge of that, and it dings their email inbox. Here's a Google form for a technology request. You are too busy for people to be showing up in your doorway saying, hey, such and such is broken. Can you let maintenance know? No, they need to let maintenance know, and they don't need to go and try and find maintenance somewhere on campus when they're outside weed whacking. Do maintenance request Google form. I'm telling you. And you're like, well, my maintenance person, they're not really good with email. Then someone needs to teach them how to get better with email. Or you can just keep doing this for the rest of your career. Okay. So I'm on my soapbox right now because I'm telling you, this will take time. You can't be the only person that's doing this. You need to get a couple of other people involved to help. But, and I'm thinking of Carrie Ann in Nashville, one of my coaching clients, went through a first year of school and then kind of made notes of all, went through her first year as a leader at a school, and then made notes of all of the things that were sort of the frequently asked questions and the frustrations and the things that people were always asking, well, where's this? Where's that? And then once the school year ended, took the time to like basically create a Google Doc that had the links to like all this stuff, everything that you can think of, have it in there, make sure it's accurate. And I'm telling you, it is a time investment, but it is going to change your life. If what I'm describing doesn't exist, or what I'm describing exists, but it's kind of reliable and kind of not at your school and not everything's in there. If you go from where you are at point A and point B is what I'm describing, I'm telling you, it is going to change your life as far as these interruptions and these paper cuts. Okay, I'll get off my soapbox. Strategy number 3, automate and template and checklist everything that you can. Automate, template, and checklist everything that you can. So again, I'm going to hit on Google Forms for things like maintenance requests, reporting absences, classroom supply needs, and those go to the person who does the purchasing. Technology requests goes to the person who handles that. And it is just essential that you're trying to get on top of your email inbox. You can't have all of these random emails that are coming to you. Hey, can you check into this? And this kid's Chromebook is not working and blah, blah, blah. It's like, I know that I'm talking to some people where it's a small operation. You're the only administrator. Maybe there's one office staff person. I get that, but that's even more of a reason why we need to have some help. And it could be a teacher. It could be, I know that every single school is different size, different size of staff, so on and so forth. But the thing that can be the same is to get the teachers to solve the first step of this themselves instead of you being the person that solves the first step of it. And the second thing is like, we're trying to be like a traffic cop. Instead of all the traffic coming to you, we're trying to get the traffic to go to the people who can help with the solution rather than it go to you and then you get the person to do the solution. You do not need to be involved with a lot of things that you're involved with. So how do you how do you do the bypass? The bypass is from automating everything that you can automate, Google Forms, the templates for parent emails that you send every year, or an event announcement for an event that you have every year, the staff memo or the weekly Friday update, the templates, so that you can like pull it out and then fill it in. And then ChatGPT can help you create some pretty awesome checklists. And so let's say that you are picking an event. Let's say it's Grandparents' Day. Let's say that you're a pre-K through 8 school with 300 students and you have an idea of how many grandparents are going to show up. You get in ChatGPT and you just type everything. Like, we're going to have some refreshments. We're going to have some class visits. We're going to start off all together in the auditorium or the gym. We're going to do this. Just describe the Grandparents' Day that you want. And just type everything possible that you can think of in there, and then ask ChatGPT to create a comprehensive checklist for that event. And there will be things that are spit out that you never thought of. And you can add then. I'm not a believer in taking ChatGPT, copy, paste, and move on. I'm a believer in ChatGPT, copy, and then edit and add and delete, and then move on with that newly created checklist. So, automate templates and checklists and get an assist from ChatGPT. Okay, so that brings us to strategy number 4, and that's build capacity with your office staff. We're talking about how can we reduce these 10,000 paper cuts. We need to build capacity with our office staff. And I want to acknowledge again, if you're a small school, you might be the office staff or it's just one person. Here's the phrase I want you to take away from this strategy. Don't give them tasks, give them systems. Don't give them tasks, give them systems. Think about how if you give a man a fish, he eats for one day, but if you teach a man to fish, he eats, for the rest of his life. And I'm sure I murdered that, but you get the idea. Talk to the person that is in your office staff or your office team. Identify, okay, here are the repetitive things. Here are the things that are getting onto my radar, onto my plate as the leader, that I think that the office staff, you're so efficient, you're so awesome at your job, I think that you could be doing a better job with this. Let's talk about what system, or just let them build the system and then you just give it a big check mark if it sounds good. And, depending on how good they are, some of you are blessed with an amazing, executive assistant at a larger school. Most of you don't have that. But again, managing your calendar, trying to be the gatekeeper of your time, those kinds of things. But regardless of where you are or how many people you have, I think there's room for improvement, and build office staff capacity, and don't just give them tasks, give them systems, or help them build systems, or let them build the system. But it's about systems. It's not about tasks. Repetitive tasks are these paper cuts that we're talking about. So get your office staff optimized. Okay, strategy number 5, and this is going to be a quick just drive by here because we already talked about this a little bit before, but strategy number 5 is to delegate facilities and tech issues. You are not the IT department. You are not the maintenance department. Now, some of you are saying, yes, I am. Okay, I get it. When I was the head of school and our school was small, we had a custodian that came in at 3:30 p.m. And if something needed to be fixed or cleaned or repaired during the day, it was me or it was this one other teacher that was kind of handy. So I get it. I understand that sometimes you are. But in many schools, there's someone else who does these things. We need to train our office staff that when a staff member or teacher shows up and is like, well, I need to talk to blah, blah, because such and such is broke, they need to be the one that redirects them to, let's talk about the Google form in the weekly memo, okay? So we need to, again, the bypass, the redirecting, we need to just make sure that they're filling out the Google form and it's going to the right person. And if you have a small school, maybe it's a teacher that shows proficiency with IT and we can pay them a few $100 of a stipend and they can be the IT person. Or maybe it's a parent that has a part-time work schedule. And, I'm not going to give you a ton of examples because I know your situations are different. But just think about it this way. If X happens, contact Y and put it in the Friday update. If X happens, contact Y. Some of them are like decision flowcharts or like task action item flowcharts. I don't want to confuse you. I want you to do what works best for you. The main thing I want you to understand is that this doesn't have to be you all the time, and this has nothing to do with you being a servant leader. Because some of you are thinking right now, well, I'll pick up a mop and I'll, untangle these cords and whatever, and that's because I'm a servant leader. Okay, I get it. There is no task that's beneath you at the school, and you will be the first one to pick up a mop or to pick up a broom after the middle school dance or to help somebody out when the IT person is unavailable. But this is not something that means you're not a servant leader if you're not doing these things, because you need to see things farther away. You need to see things sooner. You need to see a bigger picture than everybody else on staff or in your division. And you can't do that if your eyes are down, and what your eyes are down on is all of these things that you're working on that someone else could do. Delegate the facilities and the tech issues. Number 6, strategy for overcoming these paper cuts, this death by 10,000 paper cuts. Let's empower our department heads or grade level leaders. Again, if, depending on the size of your school, you might have division heads or you might have department heads or grade level leaders. And you shouldn't be the only person managing people in that school. You shouldn't be the only person that's doing leadership tasks in that school. Now, you need to clearly define the role of that person and give them some responsibility and some training, and maybe in like supervision and mentoring or resolving conflict or improving academic rigor or helping someone with classroom management. And you're like, well, I don't have time to teach them to be leaders. Okay. Buy them the John Maxwell book, The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, and ask them to read it. Then, you could discuss it with them, or it could speak for itself. I'll link it in the show notes. You could go through the 152 episode titles and look through them, and maybe there's 3 or 4 that are super relevant for the person that you want to empower, and you copy that link and you email it to them and say, hey, listen to this. You don't have to be the one that trains them if you're too busy to train them, and that's your excuse for not empowering other people to do some leadership tasks. And then you also don't have to create the job descriptions for these people from scratch. You can let ChatGPT get you started. Just kind of describe what you're looking for and then ask ChatGPT to make a comprehensive job description for blank, and then start from there, edit it, and then you're already on your way. And then 2 more strategies, and then we'll wrap it up. Strategy number 7 for overcoming death by 10,000 paper cuts is to check your boundaries. So I did an episode a few weeks ago, are your boundaries written in pencil or in Sharpie? So this is kind of a revisiting of that. Schedule send, I talk about how that can be your best friend, that even if you decide to work on something at 8 p.m. because you put your kids to bed, or it's quiet for 45 minutes in your home at a certain time, okay, don't send emails to teachers or send emails to parents at 8 p.m. Schedule send for them to go at 7 a.m. or 7:15 a.m. because then you're making a statement that there are business hours. There are office hours. Where you're not going to be available 24/7. And so I think it's important to communicate those boundaries in your parent and staff handbooks. Like, for instance, non-emergency emails will be returned during the hours of 7 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. or whatever. And then hold your teachers to it. If your teachers are replying to emails at 8 or 9 p.m., teach them about schedule send. We can't feed the beast. We can't have a school where you and all your teachers are accessible all the time, because you're going to burn out. And that's what I'm talking about with these paper cuts. And stop inviting parents into your home after 7 p.m. I'll link that episode in the show notes at theprivateschoolleader.com/episode 152. Listen, I know that I'm throwing a lot at you, and I'm talking about this link, and you could buy this book for a person to empower them at the school. If you just take one of these strategies, I don't want you to get overwhelmed by like, oh no, I got to do all these things. No, just hear me and just be like, yeah, like some of that stuff is stuff that is super frustrating, and I really don't want to do it. Okay, I want to help you with that. All right. And then strategy number 8 to overcome death by 10,000 paper cuts is to say no strategically and without guilt. And you've heard this before, where when you say yes to something, you're saying no to something else. So we say yes to a lot as private school leaders. Can you help me with this? Can you do this? I have this issue, blah, blah, blah. All right. Usually when we're saying yes to stuff at school, one of the trickle downs is that we're saying no to time with our family. And we need to stop adopting everyone else's definition of urgency. They want us to be immediately upset as upset as they are, and they want us to drop everything that we're doing and solve their problem. You are not a jerk if you say no. You could say, well, that's a great idea. Why don't you shoot me an email with that, or let's add that to our parking lot and we'll review that for the next meeting or for the next semester. Like, you're the one that has to protect strategic thinking at your school. And a lot of people have exciting ideas about shiny new things, and some of them might be actually awesome and on mission for your school, but you can't do them all at the same time, and you can't do them standing on one leg in the hallway when you're late for something. So you can say no and do it without guilt. So the big takeaways from today's episode: 8 strategies to overcome death by 10,000 paper cuts as a private school leader. Number 1, stand up when someone appears in your doorway and says, do you have a minute? Strategy number 2, improve your staff memo. Remember, all those links, one-stop shop. Number 3, automate and template everything that you can, and checklist as well. Number 4, build capacity with your office staff. Number 5, delegate facilities and tech issues. Strategy number 6, empower your department heads or grade level leaders. Number 7 is check your boundaries. And number 8 is to say no strategically and without guilt. And I like to end every episode with a call to action. Sometime in the next 3 days, pick one strategy and take one action in that strategy to reduce this frustration of all these paper cuts. And a quick reminder, Thrive Academy, theprivateschoolleader.com/thrive. It is an online course where I can teach you how to get the transformation that you want so that you feel happy and engaged and excited to go to work at your school. theprivateschoolleader.com/thrive. And then another reminder, you can grab 5 strategies to reduce teacher drama at your school by going to theprivateschoolleader.com/drama and grab your free guide. And I've been your host, Mark Minkus. I just want to say how much I appreciate you and all the hard work that you're doing at your school. Thank you so much for taking some of your precious time to join me here today. And I'll see you next time right here on the Private School Leader Podcast. And until then, always remember to serve first, lead second, and make a difference.